Good afternoon, and I'm sure you're really happy to hear the title of a presentation being "The Road to Hell is Paved with Good Intentions." I'm going to tell you a story that demonstrates how history repeats itself time and time again, and not necessarily in a good way. In the 1990s, digital cellular technology started sweeping the world. In Europe and in Asia, countries got together and agreed on a standard called GSM that meant that when you had that mobile device, you could get off a plane in Germany, in Finland, in Hong Kong, in places all around the world, and still call your friends, send text messages back to home, stay in touch with incredible ease. In the United States, we took a different approach to digital cellular technology. We said, let's let the best technology win. And as a result of that competitive thinking from the US, because we are a very competitive nation by trade, we had 7 digital cellular standards in the 1990s. One was GSM, one was CDMA. I can give you every single alphabet soup of digital standards we had. And a funny thing happened with these digital standards, and you can probably guess what it was. None of them worked together. You could be driving your car on Interstate 95 going north from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and hit the Palm Beach County line, and your Qualcomm CDMA mobile phone that you were speaking on to your wife, to your kids, would drop out. If you had a friend in Chicago who happened to use the AT&T network, and you were using a Verizon network somewhere else in the country, you couldn't even complete phone calls from one network to another. And even as recently as the early 2000s, it was impossible to send a text message from the GSM networks we had in the United States to a CDMA network in the United States. We were truly the backwater of mobile technology around the world. While meanwhile, in Europe and Asia, time moved on. The phones got more powerful, and Nokia became a global powerhouse because the US thought, let's let the best technology battle it out. Let's not worry about how these systems talk and communicate with one another. Well, ladies and gentlemen, history is repeating itself once again. We heard today a couple different numbers around the number of people who face and who live in slavery. And whether it's 21 million, 46 million, or maybe even a number even bigger than that, we have a much bigger problem sitting in front of us. And that's this. 1.1 billion people, have no legal digital identity to speak of. They are off the grid. Unlike all of us in this room who take for granted our passports, our ability to freely move from one country to another, our ability to get in a vehicle and drive from A to B. That's not the case for these individuals all around the world. And it's problematic. These are the people that are most vulnerable because when you don't have a piece of paper, suddenly you can be easily subjected to trafficking, to smuggling, to being put into conditions where you can't stand up and represent yourself. And so the United Nations has hosted a couple of wonderful summits, a project called ID 2020, a mechanism for people to come together and develop a platform-based technology to help remove that problem. And they've thought about this in a very, very clever way. They've said, rather than try to go out and get some of these nations around the world to get people to have passports or things like that. Let's go and tackle it in nations like Malawi, in Tanzania, where we have high vaccination rates of children. Let's capture the essence of these people and who they are when they're young and they're born. And when that vaccination comes into play, let's get them onto a platform where we can actually trace who these people are, where they won't disappear, where at some point in the future, their identity documents, if they do become victims of trafficking, can't be destroyed because we have a way to find them in the system. And that all sounds really great, doesn't it? And yet 1 month ago, on Necker Island, Richard Branson got a whole bunch of people together and launched the World Identity Network, doing the exact same thing that the ID 2020 initiative was doing. What the F is going on? And when are we going to learn our lessons? That it's not about recreating or trying to be the person standing up front going, I got this solved. But instead, we're going to rally around people that have a mission, that have figured it out, that have said, this is the right way we need to go and tackle this problem. Technology can solve an awful lot, but technology can't solve if the egos can't be checked at the door. And that's why the challenge that I'm going to leave every single one of you with today is this. There are so many people doing amazing things when it comes to exposing and getting people on the grid and figuring out who they are and not letting them drop through the system. And that's a terrific thing. But I want to challenge every single person in here that's working on these programs to do one thing. Figure out a way that you can take the project you're working on today and make that data, make that information available to others working on other projects around the world. Take the experience and the solutions you create in Myanmar and make them work in Algeria. Take the ideas and the concepts and the identity projects and the great things that you do in Hong Kong and transfer that smart elsewhere in the world. Because if we continue to build technology silos of information, then we completely waste the value that big data can actually bring to us. Collecting information does absolutely no good when it's done in a silo, can't be shared, and can't be acted upon. Every day I look at amazing power like Watson, like machine learning, like artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of smart people, a lot of smart nerds, as Leanne said, that can tackle this. But we can't tackle it if you're not prepared to open your data and share that data with others. So I hope you'll take this to heart. Because if we don't figure out a way to surface this data, to share this data, to make this data available across the world, then we fail those very people that we said we were here to help. We fail the 21 or 46 million currently in slavery. We fail the 1.1 billion people who lack a digital identity today, who could fall into that trap in the future. And if we don't want that number to increase year over year, this is the only way we're going to solve the problem. I'm fine if you want to create another system. Great on you, Mr. Branson. But you bloody well better figure out how you're going to make your data and how you're going to make your solution connect with every other piece of the chain of the equation, producing this data and bringing this to light. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to our panel shortly.